For 5 long years, it was just me and my mom. Sienna is a strange kind of thief. It steals a person piece by piece. Right in front of you, you find yourself grieving someone who's still there while you're combing their hair or spooning, feeding them dinner. I gave up my career as a librarian, a path I loved, and moved back into her beautiful, slowly decaying Victorian house. She was my world and I was hers. My brother Colin. He was practical. He sent checks. He lived a life of spreadsheets and ski trips, while my life revolved around pill schedules and telling the same stories over and over, hopping for a flicker of recognition. I never did it for the money. I did it because I loved her, but in those quiet, lonely nights, I'd look at the house, at the art my parents had collected, and I'd think, this is my reward. This is my due for a decade of devotion. The week after we buried her, we all gathered for the reading of the will. Colin flew in, smelling of air cologne. I was still wearing my funeral dress. The lawyer's words echoed in the stuffy room. I have a being of sound mind, leave my entire estate, including the property at 17 Maple Drive, and all its contents, to my devoted companion and caretaker, in gratitude for his unwavering love to Mr. Thayer Finch. The silence was deafening. Then Colin just exploded. Thayer Finch. Who in the world is Thayer Finch? The lawyer looked down, shuffling his papers. He was a close friend of your mother's. In her final years, she was very clear about her wishes, a close friend, a companion, a lover, while I was changing her adult diapers and singing lullabies. This man, Thayer Finch, was being devoted. It turns out he'd visit during my 2-hour respite windows on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Those precious moments were my only chance to breathe, to be a person, to buy groceries. But for him, they were a window of opportunity. He had courted a woman, fatting into the fog, and she had rewritten her entire legacy for him. The rage that hit me was sharp and white-hot. It wasn't just about the inheritance. It was the theft of my story. My decade of sacrifice was completely erased, turned into nothing more than a backdrop for some con man's late-life romance. We fought it in court. Of course we lost. The will was ironclad. She'd been declared competent by a psychiatrist he had conveniently arranged. Thayer Finch, a charming, well-dressed man in his 70s, even had the nerve to offer his sympathies in court. He got everything: the house, the art, the stocks. Colin, angry but financially secure, flew back to his life. I was left with a car full of clothes and a fury so deep it felt like it could swallow me whole, so I disappeared. I became a ghost. I rented a tiny, depressing apartment and went back to my old job at the library, a gray woman pushing a cart of books, but on the inside that cold fury was hardening, sharpening into a plan. Finch had won the legal battle. He thought the game was over. He saw me as the broken, defeated daughter. He couldn't have been more wrong. The game was just beginning. He had preyed on my mother's vulnerability. Now I would prey on his greed. I started to watch him. He moved into my mother's house, my house. He started selling off my father's antique maps. He threw dinner parties, basking in his new status as a man of culture. He was just waiting for the legal process to finish so he could sell the house and the rest of the art. I learned his schedule, his habits. His greatest pride was his newfound wealth. His greatest weakness was his absolute contempt for me. That's when the idea struck me. I wouldn't fight him head on. I would help him. I would give him exactly what he wanted in a way that would burn his entire world to the ground. In phase 1, I created Agnes. I used what little money I had to hire a theatrical makeup artist. Together we built Agnes, a fragile, wealthy, elderly woman. She was sweet, a little confused, showing the first signs of dementia. Just clear enough to be believable, but foggy enough to be manipulated. I spent a month in my sad little apartment practicing her voice, her frail posture, her lost, gentle smile. Phase 2 was the introduction. I knew Finch volunteered at the local art museum on Wednesday afternoons. It was all for show, of course, so Agnes, dressed in elegant vintage clothes, started visiting the museum. She'd wander around looking fascinated, but overwhelmed. One Wednesday, she got lost right near his post, ever the gentleman he rushed to help her. She clung to his arm, her eyes welling up with tears. "You're so kind," she'd murmur, "just like my late husband. He loved art so much. I have so much of it, but it's all so confusing now. The lawyers, the paperwork. I just want it to go somewhere beautiful." And right then I saw it, the same predatory flicker he must have heard when he first met my mother, a rich, confused old woman with no family to protect her. For him it was like lightning striking twice. He took the bait, hook, line, and sinker. He became Agent's devoted friend and guide. He helped her with her complicated finances. He visited her at a beautiful urban, had rented for her, pretending it was her temporary home. He was so confident in his charm, so certain of his power over the vulnerable. This brought us to phase 3, the donation. I had Agnes confide in him. She was heartbroken. A fictional, greedy nephew I invented was pressuring her to sell everything. "But Theor," she whispered, clutching his hand, "I want it to mean something. I want to give it all away to the museum. Could you help me? I have a trust. You. See, my lawyers just need a directive from me and my advisor." I made him her financial power of attorney. The documents drafted by a lawyer I had hired were perfect. He didn't see a trap. He saw his masterpiece. He wouldn't just be rich, he would be celebrated as a great philanthropist. He would have status, respect, maybe even a permanent advisory role at the museum. His ego was the key to his downfall. The day of the signing, Agnes was especially vague. "Just make sure it all goes to the beautiful pictures, Theor, the house, the accounts, everything. You're my angel." He literally guided her hand as she signed the papers, donating the entire Agnes Montgomery Trust to the museum. Of course, the Agnes Montgomery Trust was a fiction. The assets being donated were the ones he had stolen from me, which were now legally under his control as her power of attorney. He had just signed away his entire fortune. The next day, Agnes Montgomery vanished. The Airbnb was empty. Her phone was disconnected. Theor Finch was left as the celebrated facilitator of the city's largest ever philanthropic donation, with one small problem: the assets he had just donated in Agnes's name were his. He had personally authorized the transfer of his own inheritance to charity. He tried to stop it, screaming fraud, but the paper trail led to a ghost. The museum, seeing a massive, legally binding windfall, fought him with everything they had. The only person with a motive was me, the pitiful daughter, but I had an unbreakable alibi. I was at the library, surrounded by witnesses. He had no proof, only the sickening certainty that he'd been played. I watched from a distance as his life implodes. He spent every last cent on lawyers and lost the house, the art, the money, all gone, transferred to a public trust. The house is now the Vance Finch wing of the museum, a name chosen with a perfect poetic irony. It's named for my mother and her devoted companion. I visit. Sometimes I walk through the halls and look at my father's paintings now on display for everyone to enjoy. And I feel a deep, quiet peace. For 10 years, I cared for my mother, and her inheritance went to her lover, so I pretended to have dementia and tricked him into donating everything to charity. He's everything. I didn't get my inheritance back. Instead, I turned it into a permanent monument to his ruin, and that I've decided is a much better legacy. Thanks for listening to my story.